Hello everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar. Edge presents Achieving Competitive Advantage with Green Warehouses, powered by Construction Week. We are delighted to see the response to this webinar, and I thank you all for taking time out for being a part of this webinar today. My name is Indrajit Sahuji. I head the construction and design vertical for ITP in India, and I'll be your host for today. Let me start with a brief introduction about ITP. ITP Media Group is one of the largest foreign media companies in India. The group is headquartered out of Dubai and now publishes more than 100 weekly and monthly magazines and has a wide portfolio of market-leading digital and event properties. Some of our well-known global titles includes magazines like Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, Time Out, Cosmopolitan, Grazia, Construction Week, Hotelier, Architect and Interiors India, and more such prominent titles across industry verticals. In India, we have 7 titles including Construction Week. Construction Week being our largest circulated construction magazines globally with presence across geographies. Coming back to the webinar topic, achieving competitive advantage with green warehouses. Going green in the warehouse can have many benefits. Companies today recognize that implementing environmentally friendly or green policies can result in cost saving that will directly impact their bottom line and enhance the business brand reputation. One key business area that companies can go green is their warehouses and distribution centers. By optimizing warehouse operations, warehouses and distribution centers can minimize land usage, lower energy cost, and reduce waste production. How we can achieve it? That's the question that we'll try to answer in the next 1.5 hours. Fortunately, we have the expert with us, and let's hear it from them, how India is poised to cater to this demand. Do we have the right technology? Do we have the global products and standards? Do we have the expertise? And many more such intriguing questions. We want this session to be interactive and engaging, and we look forward to learn from our audience as well. In case if you have any questions during the course of the session, please feel free to ask them by using the question tab. We have a Q&A session towards the end of the segment where these questions will be answered. Please mention which speakers are these questions addressed to. My team and I are looking forward to all questions and will try to answer as many as possible. Without any further delay, let me introduce our presenting partner, Edge by IFC. An innovation of IFC, a member of World Bank Group, Excellence and Design for Greater Efficiencies, popularly known as Edge, is a globally recognized tech-enabled green building certification system that is focused on resource efficiencies, carbon performance of upcoming and existing buildings. It provides leading companies with the opportunity to gain a competitive advantage by differentiating their building projects and adding value to the lives of their customers. Edge brings speed, market intelligence, and an investment focus to the next generation of green buildings certification in all countries across the globe. IFC created Edge to respond to the needs for a measurable and credible solution to prove the business case for building green and unlock financial investments. Edge includes a cloud-based platform to calculate the cost of going green and recurring savings in the utility bills. State-of-the-art engine has a sophisticated set of city-based climate and cost data, consumption patterns, and algorithms for predicting the most accurate performance results. Launched in 2014, Edge received startup funding from SECO, Switzerland's State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, and is currently funded by the UK government. Additional donors include Austria, Canada, Denmark, ESMA, EU, Finland, GEF, Hungary, and Japan. A global network of certificates and accredited Edge experts support the collective ambition to mainstream green buildings and help fight climate change. Thank you, IFC, for partnering with us and giving us this opportunity to create this informative and inspiring webinar series on green buildings. Now, without any further ado, let me introduce our editor, Jayashree Mendes, to further take the session. Thank you.
We have a very eclectic panel today who will speak on green warehousing and will bring their expertise to the table. We have Jeet Shah, who's an architect by profession with an industry experience of more than 16 years in creating logistics and industrial infrastructure of global industrial infrastructure of global standards. Can I have the slides, please? He has been associated with DHL and Kalpataru Group in sketching their growth. Shah has a keen business as well as entrepreneurial sense in recognizing opportunities for business development and has helped the company gain foothold in new territories. Mark Selvaraj is Chief Architect at Lantec AEPC. Having graduated in architecture, he holds a master's degree from University of Florida in construction management. He has a work experience of 21 years in warehouse and industrial segments in India and abroad. Lantec has delivered warehouse planning and design in and around Tamil Nadu for 4 million square feet under his tutelage. Mridul Uprethi leads transformative and disruptive ideas that could further IFC 3.0 strategy of mobilizing private sector investment for creating new markets. In his previous role, he was the CEO of Segregated Funds Group at JLL. He also served as Managing Director and co-head JLL Capital Markets Group, India. He is a featured angel investor in technology startups across sectors. Mridul holds an MBA in finance from Delhi University and a bachelor's in planning from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. Gartham Sahara is an industry veteran with 35 years experience in steel, power, and building infrastructure sectors. A mechanical engineer by qualification, he has worked in both public and private sectors in various domains like operation and maintenance, quality assurance, corporate planning, design and engineering, projects and contracts and purchase. He is currently working as head of contracts and purchase and executive council member in the projects division of ITC. It also includes program management with responsibility of delivery of multiple building infrastructure projects in factories and warehouses. Mandar Shinde holds a BE Civil post-graduation in construction management from NICMAR. He is also a member of RICS. He started his career with CB Richard Ellis in the year 2000. Over the years, he has managed projects across various industries such as Greenfield IT campus development, residential projects, and hospitality industry. In his current portfolio, he leads the techno-commercial department under which the team is in the bridge between the leasing and projects team. And finally, we come to our moderator for the day, Sandeep Singh, who is a seasoned industrial leader specializing in real estate investments and real estate development. He has over 26 years of work experience in India and the USA and has been working in CXO roles for over a decade. He has worked with leading companies such as CBRE, Cushman and Wakefield, and Mahindra Life Spaces. Passionate about environmental sustainability, Sandeep is currently working as a senior consultant with the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group. Sandeep holds an architecture degree from the School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, and an MBA degree from the University of Georgia, USA.
And thank you all the panelists for coming on this panel today and agreeing to share your perspectives and insights as experts, and many thanks to all the audience who have joined us today on a Friday afternoon, soon after lunch. So hopefully we will have a discussion which is engaging and interesting enough to keep your attention. And I think it's a very, very relevant topic. In the last few years, the world has seen several climate-related disasters, from cyclones to huge wildfires, unprecedented heat waves in many countries, across continents, from droughts in Africa to severe floods here in South Asia, including several parts of India, repeatedly in the last 4 or 5 years. I think most of you would remember. The frequency of these disasters has increased very, very rapidly. According to Oxfam, the number of climate-related disasters has actually tripled in the last 3 decades. More than 20 million people are forced from their homes each year due to these disasters. And the worst part is that it is the poorest of the poor that face the maximum, the worst brunt of this. Now, most of you are probably already aware of this and understand its importance as well. However, the situation is so grave that we cannot overemphasize the need that we all need to actively do our part in tackling climate change. And green buildings are a very important part of that approach. Some of you might be aware that the building sector contributes 39% of global greenhouse gas emissions, 39%. And a portion of it comes from the construction phase, but a bulk, the majority comes from the operations of these buildings. And now let's just juxtapose this 40% number with the fact that by the year 2060, the total amount of floor space in the world would have doubled compared to what we have today. That means whatever floor space that is currently built, we will build one more time in the next 4 decades. And that's a lot of development. And that development primarily is going to come from emerging markets like India. Hence, it is all of our responsibility that whatever we build in a resource efficient manner. That means build green. And one of the fastest growing sectors in the real estate industry today is that of warehousing. In today's discussion, we will talk about green warehouses, and we will also deep dive to explore whether building a green warehouse can also give us competitive advantage in the business. So with that, let me pose my first question to the panelists here. And my first question has two parts. It is, to all of you, we'll go through all 5 of you, esteemed gentlemen. It has two parts. So one, give us an overview about your organization. And second, what is your organization doing to tackle climate change? Keep this at a policy level, not get into the features of green buildings and all that, more at a policy level, macro. What is your organization doing? Mridul, can I put you for the first take on this question?
Sure. Thanks, Sandeep, and thanks, Indrajit, for having me on this call. I think, as was described previously, IFC is the private sector arm of the World Bank. And the World Bank Group in itself has remodeled the way we look at climate change in the recent past. So to give you a perspective, we have a fairly comprehensive climate change action plan, or CCAP as it is called. And one of the 2 or 3 key features there, maybe I should say 2 key features there, is number one, have at least 35% of our financing to be climate finance, so tagged as climate finance, which is an increase from previously 25%. And the other more important thing is looking at this holistically. So you look at, most or all investments by 1st July 2025 being Paris aligned, which is, as we keep discussing this forward, you will realize that there is one thing known as looking only at half the picture, which is only mitigation. The other one is also adaptation and building resilience in the property sector.
Absolutely.
So these are 2 things which is now getting more and more critical. And I'll be brief because we have to go around the group. But briefly also to say that most of our financing that we're looking at in the property real sector, just to zoom into property edge, the green rating tool that Indrajit described is paramount in understanding how we achieve those pathways. So, one thing is to talk about mitigation and adaptation, but also to make sure that at the end of a certain time period, 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years from today, what is colloquially known as a net zero pathway, those are also achieved for properties and portfolios. So yeah, that's the big picture, and maybe I'll pause on my opening comments.
Thanks, Mridul. Gartham, can we have you next for the same question?
So in the first part, in the policy level also, but then at the same time, what we have delivered so far in terms of the green space. Okay. So ITC in the corporate level, we have greened with afforestation of 876,000 acres. Not only it has helped in carbon sequestration, but also it has supported 160 million person days of employment of marginal farmers. And this is one part. There is a long list, but I will only highlight a couple of things just to make the perspective clear that, yeah, we are truly a champion organization in terms of the green and the sustainability measures. The next, I would like to highlight that we have promoted biodiversity conservation for 44,000 acres with a target now of 250,000 acres in raising the water table, lowering the intensity of the agriculture. We have also, in policy level, we have a program like WOW, Well-being Out of Waste, which has reached now 1.5 crore citizens. ITC Pan-India is supporting something like 6 million plus people with large-scale watershed management of something like 1.2 million acres, where water savings we have achieved to the extent of 25 to 40%, and in developing 7 crops. This includes large-scale sustainable agriculture. This includes large-scale farmer empowerment. I think each of all of you will be knowing, so I don't have to repeat that how it has transformed, and it is still transforming the lives of the farmers in terms of seed, in terms of production, in terms of the market, everywhere. So as of now, we can say that despite our growing footprint in manufacturing. We are 41%, our 41% of our energy requirement is from renewable. And we have a target of 100% renewable for all of our energy requirements by 2030. I think some question is there for you. Yeah, okay, so that is a different thing. Yeah. So in terms of the building infrastructure, we have 33 LEED Platinum green building, USGBC LEED Platinum certified buildings, totaling of almost 20 million square feet. And otherwise, of course, it is a business imperative, but then in factories and warehousing space, we have 30 million square feet because green designs are, or sustainable designs are part and parcel of our kind of planning process itself. So even without doing anything, all of our properties, some of our properties we have got the gold certification, but then we know that certification is not the end of the world. So as a part of our regular practice itself, I can say that we have 30 million plus square feet factories and warehouses which can easily certify for gold, and some of them are already certified. Then practices are common. And in terms of the corporate level, we have the target of reducing the greenhouse gases by 50%. Okay, we have 100% program, 100% of reusable, recyclable, and compostable packaging by 2028. That's our corporate target. And rainwater harvesting by 2030, 5 times of rainwater harvesting of the water that we consume for us. So this is what is in a nutshell, in terms of sustainability and in terms of green space. These are the highlights, but there is a long story. I think informations are available in public domain. So this is what we have been doing so far. Now, I'm not sure whether,
So that's very helpful, Gartham. That's quite a big, quite a number of initiatives that ITC is doing, and I'm sure deep diving into it means like a whole day workshop. So thanks for summarizing all of that. Can we go to Jeet, then Mark, and then Mandar in that sequence?
We at FWS, we had developed around 2.5 million square feet of warehousing space in last 1.5 decade of our inception. And all those facilities are fully owned by us, leased by us, and managed by us. We have got a customer ranging from Indian multinationals to multinational companies, 3PL, e-commerce company, all of our customers. And definitely we do a construction which is industry first initiative, where we take a lot of pain in getting new construction technologies like precast technologies in our warehousing. So one of our latest project in NCR, the entire warehouse building is a precast building. So we don't do any construction at site. All the material has been produced in the factory where you have a controlled atmosphere, and above that there's a pre-engineered building. So that's at FWS. And also we do a lot of green initiative in terms of lot of specifications. Everybody knows about it, what we do for green specifications. And also we had started with a process of certification of our all the facilities through Edge. So the Edge is a cloud-based cloud-based certification process, which is a very simplified process. And we had done a couple of properties done for the certification, and we are on the second round of consulting Edge for the next this thing level. So we at FWS, we do a lot of research and development in our construction technologies. So that includes we are working on something where now we can do a precast flooring and a road also for a warehousing industry. So that's that reduces your on-site construction activities definitely at most of the time, and it reduces your manpower drastically at the construction site. So that's the basic introduction of FWS and what initiative we take for the green buildings.
Thanks so much, Jeet. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep, for handing me. See, the question that I got from you is like, with the policy level, what we do in Atlantic AEPC.
Right. As a consultant, I mean, your scope would be a little different from what
yes.
the developers and
right.
occupiers are doing. Yeah. But in a nutshell, you can just tell us about what all are you doing.
Correct. So because like our scope is basically dictated by developers and the demands.
That's right.
So we actually, but as a policy, and a lot of the time, what we have noticed also, the climate change and this client demands are actually like coming to us as looking for an expert with a green and sustainable way of designing the buildings. So that's kind of helping us like in fact, like we have a recent experience in one of the building, like where 4 lakh square feet is getting LEED rated because the loan actually the commercial incentive is there. The loan and private equity companies are driving the building to have a green certification. So that kind of comes back to us like an architect like us to add value and increase the green elements into this building. So this is our general driving factor. But as an experience and as a typical building designers that we do, not only in warehouses in other parts also, which we have a collaborative experience that we load into this any kind of building or development that we do. So like you said, like the climate change currently across the globe, it's heavily changing that we have noticed in all our projects and all our experiences. Like it says, like it gets tremendous impact on the operation. Let's say like the warehouse space like that, it's an ideal, it's a nodal space for any product to deliver from one end to another end. If there is any climate impact, like that's a climate impact per se, like from our sense, like there's a sudden heat and sudden rainfall, and so which is basically it's not pre-thought in many of the previous buildings. So what we have seen and we are seeing in many of the recent floodings, it's all driven by the climate change. So the sudden erratic flooding, it's basically driving many of the operations. Many buildings just go out of the business for a couple of days, couple of months, and leaves a heavy damage. So this in turn, what actually teaches us or like demands the business like us to come out and provide a policy or provide an input in such a way like the future with such a catastrophe will not occur in any of our buildings. So this is a policy that we basically go across the clients in all our buildings and we teach them. So these are our experience. So we should add value on this kind of an area so that like we don't see those things, any catastrophe or any other things coming. But operationally, you get a lot of huge benefits. So we kind of go on convincing the client, and many of them are already educated, and many of them come with the demands. So that kind of helps us also. So this is our typical way of approaching a building, and this has been a kind of a beginning policy. Even like we don't do many grade 2, grade 3 level of warehouses. We don't typically do in our office. So all of the delivery is mainly driven towards grade 1, in which with a lot of focus on green or medium focus on green based on the client demands. So this is how we typically do the operations. So this is our general experience.
Thanks so much, Mark. I think it's very, very important that as a advisor, as a consultant, you are educating your clients. There are quite a few of us here who are already, very, very well aware of the needs, but then I'm sure it needs more propagating, amongst the masses. And thanks for doing that. And a couple of other interesting points you brought up, push from the lending institution, for going green. And you talked about extreme climates. And I'm thinking last 4 or 5 years, Chennai has had like 2-3, times it has flooded very, very badly, which was practically unheard of in the past, right?
Correct.
So
many of the coastal cities in India, I think they're facing these challenges.
Yes, it's starting to show very, very clearly. Mandar, on to you.
As we all spoke, all the panelists spoke about this. So we all know that businesses are living organisms. So, and the concepts of sustainability and green have become a main value for many businesses nowadays. So, and that is what at ESR we realize, and that is how we aspire to implement the green warehousing construction technologies over here. So just before going on to that, ESR is Apex's largest investor and manager. So we are not typical developers or kind of construction and organization. So and that is how we all our parks are designed and constructed based on our international guidelines, integrating all the sustainable features and all the safe construction practices, which are key to our most of the businesses nowadays. So most of our parks are currently pre-certified. So before even going and hitting onto the ground, the certification for green building gets initiated. And I'm very happy to say here that almost 50% of our current parks in India are already certified for gold and platinum. So these are the measures what we as an organization have inculcated in ourselves right from the day one. Okay, and the prime, as we all know, the warehousing industrial, this industry is like it generates a lot of waste. It has vulnerability to a lot of GHG greenhouse gas emissions. So controlling that, not only at the construction level but also at the operational level, that is what at ESR we ensure to do, and that is the primary reason that we at all our parks we ourselves manage the park. The entire park is managed by us, and going throughout the life cycle of the construction as well as the operations, we ensure that these green or environment friendly measures are implemented to the last T. So, and which encompasses like adopting latest technologies by way of monitoring, by way of governance, is what is the coming period need. That is how I would put. I wouldn't take much of time on this because I'm sure we have a lot of questions in people's mind about how exactly this would be implemented and how exactly this would be taken forward.
Sure. Thanks, Mandar. But before we get on to the next question, quick question to you. I mean, yours is a very large operation across the globe, and some 64 million square meters you were talking about.
Yes.
Is ESR making any commitments towards zero carbon or path to zero carbon, anything like that? Just in a one or two sentences, if you can talk about.
Yes, of course.
Thank
so
you.
we as an organization, we have a commitment which is aligned to the commitment of the Indian government also, and in line with the Paris Agreement, that the carbon emissions towards the end of we should be reducing as a country. We will be reducing it by 30% by to 2030, and almost by zero carbon by 2050. And we are aligned with that commitment. And as a company, as an organization, we have a very stringent ESG policy in place, which is implemented across the globe, and yes, very seriously implemented in India, and as per which various measures in terms of Jeet has already explained about the precast technology. So that is something which we have is already being implemented in all our projects, pre-engineered buildings, and also monitoring. See, what happens is that more than implementing it at the construction stage and moving along, most important is monitoring of all these measures is very important. And that monitoring, we do it by use of technology, by use of cloud-based technologies, and that is how we are committed towards them.
Thank you so much, Mandar. Jeet, coming back to you, try to keep it brief, but I know that you entered the warehousing market some 16 years ago.
Yes.
So you have seen it grow from pre-nascent stage to nascent, and then so on and so forth. Can you talk about how you have seen it evolve, specifically with respect to the quality of buildings, the design part, and with a focus on the green aspects?
Yeah, definitely. So, Sandeep, basically, I've seen the era where there were RCC buildings, of 6 meter height and RCC columns in the Mumbai. Okay, so then it has been slowly graduated from RCC buildings where the roads are not there to a shared building. You can, people used to call that building as a shared building.
Shed.
Where there used to be initially asbestos sheet, then taken by the galvanum sheet, okay, and on-site fabrication work, on-site construction work, okay. So from that, people have started slowly developing into PEB buildings, okay, which had come in around in the year around 2005 to 2007, 8. People have started knowing about pre-engineered building, and then people had getting more into detail of pre-engineered building, and then how the air cycle changed in the warehouse, number of air cycle required, and also in terms of material, roofing systems, then cladding. There are a lot of development has been seen across the year. Okay, so insulations, basically, insulations were not used initially, but from last 7 to 8 years, we've seen the insulation also has been used by the industry, where temperatures at least find a difference of around 8 to 10 degree, where in peak summers where temperature outside is around 50 degrees centigrade. Okay, so and now you see the recent modern building warehouses, as Mandar spoke. Okay, there are grade A grade A buildings which are like of a global standards. Okay, so people had people like customer has started demanding those kind of specifications, like where we used to have an RFP before 7 or 8 years. Okay, nobody used to ask for how many rainwater harvesting pits you have got. Do you have a solar panel load considered for this? Okay, then how is your construction technology? What are you doing? How much is the landscape area in your? So those have from last couple of years, it has been a part of an RFP. Okay, so thanks to consultant like Mark. Okay, they have definitely educated people and customers, like there has to be a green initiative taken for the to, as a global citizen, we should be respectable, and then we should respect those global our planet, so that definitely for a longer generations, okay, we can have something stored for them. Okay, so that's from my end, Sandeep.
Yeah. So, that sparks a slightly related question. And I think I'll pose that question to both you and Mandar, to Jeet and Mandar, because both of you run warehouses which are leased out to third-party tenants, right? How have the tenants' demands changed over the last few years? I mean, are they really demanding green, or are they not? What is the experience? Jeet, starting with you, then we can go to Mandar.
So Sandeep, customers have started, asking for what kind of certification you are looking for your buildings. Okay, so that has been started from last couple of years. Okay, so they are always, as I told you earlier, also, like they want the specifications. Okay, which become the part of their RFP only. So those automatically, those your criterias are automatically matched for the green building certifications. Okay, and not only from your multinational companies, but lot of Indian companies, lot of Indian 3PL companies, lot of e-commerce companies, they have started demanding this at the very early stage, of the conception of your project. Okay, because in all the build to suit buildings what we did designed, okay, they ask for those things which are related to green green building, and also, like that itself give you an edge, that your buildings itself become eligible for the green certifications. Okay, so customers are now concerned about the overall certification, overall green buildings. Okay, what kind of things you are implementing it, and also they are not asking on the paper. Okay, they are looking at after the construction, if something is missed out, then they definitely ask you to have this in place, okay, and then they take the possession of the building. So the definitely customers are very much aware about this green buildings now.
Very interesting to know, and very good point you raised about something being on paper versus something being actually there. So glad to hear that the tenants are actively demanding. In your estimate, let's say in the last 1.5 years has been very exceptional. So we can, let's say, last 2 or 3 years, what percentage of your tenants have asked for green features in your building versus the rest who are just normally looking for a space? Just a number I'm looking
around 70-75% of my
70-75.
Yes,
that's a big number.
Most of them ask for this.
Good. Thanks for that. Mandar, what has been your experience from the tenant side?
Yeah, very similar to Jeet's. In fact, because yes, my primary answer to that question is yes. Yes, tenants are demanding for green features. And see, as I was just mentioning that, see, currently India, ESR has a portfolio of almost 700 acres in India, okay, with a 18 million square feet development. And we are seeing more and more tenants, especially the global companies. But yes, the Indian companies also specifying green building requirements. Of course, on a lighter note, they may not be willing to pay for it, but yeah, it would be as so. But yes, it is an emerging trend where companies are preferring to go in a green building as against not very efficient structure, because see that not only helps their businesses in terms of a brand, okay, but also in terms of their operational costs, because the operational cost, yes, it might be it's a totally different game of capex and opex, but yes, when it comes to opex, a green building will always be much more efficient than a conventional structure. So yeah, the trend is emerging. People are going for green buildings, and as Jeet already mentioned, yes, 75 to 80% would be the percentage of people asking for green structures and green certified buildings. And that is how, as I said, all our parks we have a green certification, gold, platinum. That is the minimum what we look at.
Very interesting. And so essentially what I'm understanding, sorry, Jeet, go ahead, please.
So, before, in the past, say around 10, 12, 15 years back, customers and clients used to use their warehouse as a, back-end operations. Okay. But after 2011, 12, trend has changed and people had started looking your warehousing as a profit center. Okay. Right. So that has been definitely, the green buildings reduces their cost of operations. So that's definitely in there. All the customers are looking at that kind of a building, and also they look that as a profit center, which is a very important criteria of their business. Okay. So that's, I just wanted to add on this point.
Sure. Thanks for that. So essentially, what I'm hearing from both of you is that, if you're not building green, you will not qualify for a lot of RFPs that are there in the market, maybe more than 2/3 or, and just end up with the lower quality of tenants and maybe even vacancies. So very, very important point you have brought here. Gartham, next question is to you. You have been an occupier of warehouses for your own this thing, and I know it's a different department, but we'll still pose the same question to you as a representative of ITC. As a tenant in third-party warehouses, what has been your experience, and how has it evolved in the last maybe a decade or 5 years, whatever perspective you want to share?
Couple of points coming up from FWS as well as ESR, which is very relevant and important to note is basically customers, whether they are willing to pay for this. Okay.
That's right.
Now, and who all they are competing. Okay. Because if you see that way, I would see that, it's it's majorly driven by the unorganized sector. Warehousing space in India still, okay, dominated still by the unorganized set of people whose mantra is the only one making money. Okay, so I don't think there is any kind of policy level thing you can expect from them other than in government level push or some pull factors from multinational institutes like IFC and all. As third party occupier, as I can see that the business imperatives come into the picture, as Jeet said that the warehousing as a kind of a separate profits. Okay, even if it is in-house, you are a manufacturing company and you are also warehousing is one part of your whether it is inbound or outbound is part of your business. That warehousing is operated as a separate business vertical, and logistics also are given to make money. So that becomes a challenging proposition for them, to go for some warehousing which are green in feature, which has all the green features. And at the same time, I will not restrict it to green features alone, sustainable features, because life and property safety are also equally important. Because in one incident in terms of your life can actually wipe out 1 year of profitability and all. So life and property safety is also equally important. So if you club this together, yes, the organized players like AWS and ESR, Indospace, they are coming, but then proportion is still yet to pick up. And they are competing with largely unorganized sector where it is just a box, okay? Forget about any proper ventilation or your kind of human comfort or in terms of your energy conservation or using the renewable energy. Now, if I am talking about renewable energy, now one has to look at that. What is the payback? Okay. So if operation, it gives the benefit, it gets the edge, then in how many years really it pays back? Okay. So that is one question comes always. In terms of water, that similar question will come. If you are putting up rainwater harvesting or even the rainwater collection, if see, technically it is very much possible to have 100% warehouse run by the renewable energy, 100% by the rainwater is feasible because you can easily collect the rainwater, rooftop rainwater, store it there and use it throughout the year. Okay.
Are you doing it in your warehouses?
Yes. 1 or 2 cases piloted, but then yes, it is picking up. It is picking up because water is getting scarce and scarce. Not that if you are putting up your plant in kind of a red zone and all where you cannot take a groundwater and you don't have the municipal supply, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So my only submission is that somewhere I think we need to have some push-pull from government, multilateral institutions, and as well as some amount of consolidation is required. And in that term, I think the government can play a big role, like we are talking about industrial layouts. Can we look for more and more warehousing or logistic hubs? Okay, consolidation of it. I think it can help a big way.
So while you mentioned, some of the features, and while we are still with you, let me pose you a slightly different question. If you can elaborate on these new pilot warehouses that you're building, which have all these new features, can you elaborate a little bit on what are the features that you're using? But then I will ask you a more pressing question.
I think couple of features.
How much is it costing incrementally? How much is it costing incrementally more? And then, why are you still doing it if it's costing more?
Yeah. So I think that, in warehouse, your major operational cost will come from 2 aspects. One is your energy and another is your essentially your lighting energy and ventilation energy. And another is your water. Okay. Mm-hmm. And of course, the third part is in terms of operational efficiency, where you can look for automation and all. That's a different ballgame altogether. Now, in terms of ventilation, if I look at it, I think Jeet said that roof insulation, and I can say that, of course, the PEB, we are the first to import. In fact, I remember, 2007 or so, we imported PV. PV was not there in India. We imported PV from Dubai. So that has, starting from there, we have seen your rock wool, mineral wool insulations, roof insulations. Now we are going for XLPE insulations, okay, which is very light on the roof loading, okay. So with the insulations and then the at least minimum 5% of the roof area, skylights with your UV protective coating, and then with your good amount of louver and the roof monitor or the ridge vent, you can actually have a good natural ventilation without having any kind of forced or artificial ventilation requirement and the cost of energy towards that. If at all you are getting into somewhere, still, in the ambient temperature is high and it is not still comfortable, I guess we have the technologies like HVLS fans, which works very well with little bit of energy, but then covering the large areas with good comfort level. So this, in terms of the ventilation, I would like to highlight. In terms of energy, electrical energy, I would say lighting. Of course, LED is given for us. It's a long time. It's not only LED is given, but as I said, that it is sustainability also. These LEDs, I think how many of us are aware that there are 50 plus safety and performance tests for the LEDs. So what LEDs we take, it is not only in terms of the performance, but also in terms of the safety, that the product we select, it goes through this kind of, we verify this kind of 50 plus tests, okay, to ascertain the quality and the performance of the LEDs. So you can see that amount of kind of diligence it goes through. So LED with your only in the aisle space, as well as we are now piloting in terms of your motion sensor based or IoT based lighting only on the aisles, that we are planning to pilot. Of course, that will be an experience by itself. And in terms of rooftop solar, it is given. As I can see, as I was telling, of course, I'm a little bit of kind of deviating from the question, but then I think roughly if I take 10 to 12 square meter per kilowatt peak of solar, a typical 2 lakh square feet of warehouse can generate easily 1.5 megawatt peak. Okay, whereas the requirement in normal circumstances should not be more than, I would guess, even if you have automation, should not be more than 400, 500 kilowatt peak. So there, I think, as I was saying, that government can play a big role if we have that green grid in terms of open access and banking, because in the night you need power. So open access with wheeling and banking, I think the government will have to, or the utility bodies will have to come up, and that can really change the game in terms of completely renewable energy based warehousing. So I think these are a couple of features I just thought of sharing.
Sure. I think that that format has started to appear. The government is doing that, where you are plugged into the grid, you're supplying to the grid, and taking from the grid when during night times and when your sources down.
We are facing huge challenge in our warehouses and factories, because so many state utilities are not ready for even net metering. Okay,
it's probably in only certain locations in the country. That's as to the other two developers, while we are talking about features, and also to you, Mark, I'll sort of open it up before I go to the next question. In terms of features and also the cost.
I had one point just to add to what Gautamji said, that yes, the government has made the provisions for the power part of it and renewable energy, but Gautamji, in the northern part, they have already started enhancing all their substations and all. So if you look at Haryana, if you look at Gurgaon and all these, Chandigarh and all, so these places, they have already started enhancing. And yes, I think in the near future, we should be able to see that development happening in terms of renewable energy and the availability. Because currently, if you look at, the government has already released a list of around 450 solar power stations, wherein we can take power from. And yes, open source is something which I would also advocate about government opening that opportunity to large organizations like yours. I think that yes, that will help to a large extent in terms of the climate change control.
So, Mandar, are you planning any of your warehouses to be absolutely zero carbon?
Yes, in fact,
Just by themselves, fully power and water sufficient.
water sufficient, yes, very much, because all our parks we already have the rainwater harvesting system in place and the stormwater storage systems in place, and it seems a little different, but all our buildings, irrespective of the kind of RFP or irrespective of the kind of requirements, all our buildings we design to take the solar load on the roof. So yes, that is a factor which increases our construction cost. But yeah, we are okay to have it, because in the coming future we are looking at reduction, or rather almost minimizing our carbon footprints to a large extent. So that is how we are ensuring it should, and we want that to happen.
So you're building it zero carbon ready, and at some future date you can put your solar PVs and be totally independent and self-reliant on the power front as well.
So just on a APAC level, we have already we are generating almost 35 megawatts of solar power through our roofs. And in India, we have already started it, starting with Calcutta. One of our tenants, they have already installed around 1.2 megawatt of solar power panels, and which is getting replicated to Pune, to Mumbai, in the north at Sona. So all these facilities, all these parks will be self-sufficient in terms of power.
That's heartening to know. Any other comments from you, Jeet and Mark, about this path to zero carbon and
Yeah, I kind of want to add, I second the points what Gartham and Jeet was mentioning. What Gartham was mentioning, like we have parks, industrial buildings that's actually sustainable, and it's purely running on only collection of the rainwater. No other water is being supplied from anywhere, from municipality or outside. So we have had designs, and that's actually included in a couple of our buildings, or majority of buildings is purely dependent only on rainfall. So we have created rainwater facilities, and which gets sand filtered and purified, and it's used for domestic. So that's perfectly functioning, and we were able to sustain majority of the buildings, because all of the warehouses are large footprints, which controls majority of the water that comes in. Easily you can divert and create a retention ponds and divert it into some kind of a treatment plant, and you can supply back to the tenants. So that's been already going on in many of our projects that we've already seen. And also, like in terms of the natural ventilation, a lot of the projects that we design and plan is like completely that we create a space with analysis of sun path, wind path, and how the way this ventilation behaves. So it is not dependent anywhere on a forced or a mechanical ventilation. No extra energy is required to create a best human comfort. So that is being going on in our majority of the buildings. And this is workable, and it's not very costly also.
Right.
Which we have witnessed in many of our projects.
Yeah, in my experience as well, passive solar techniques, the maximum use of those to keep your energy requirements down, to keep thermal comfort high, are the first steps. And then, of course, you can go on to the active measures. We are running out of time very quickly. Mridul, coming back to you, from an investor's perspective, what are your key drivers? We talked about features, we talked about tenants, but as an investor, what are your key drivers for green buildings, especially warehouses? And then there is a second part to the question that, purely from a financial perspective, do green warehouses make a good business case?
So Sandeep, I think just to step back, the property sector globally is it's estimated to be about $250 trillion US dollars, a very large asset class.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you decarbonize the property sector is let's say a macro discussion. And when you look at zooming down to methods of participating, you can probably do debt or equity. Yeah. So what has happened in the recent past, in IFC's experience, green bonds have become very, very interesting asset class by themselves. If you remember that previous number, $110 trillion of bonds are outstanding as of December 2020.
Right.
Only about $1 trillion is in green bonds. So this is the cumulative from 2012 to 2020. So clearly there is a lot of headroom for green bonds to expand. And that's one interesting point. And the other thing in warehousing and office in that sense, these tend to be fixed income in terms of investment. So you look at stabilized operating buildings, you look at their performance parameters, and then long-term investors would like to own this for a long period of time. So it kind of matches the asset liability requirements for most pension funds. And the reason I'm giving that background is this is the reason why most of these large institutional investors, including IFC, we have our targets for investing into green opportunities and green buildings. So that is one tailwind which is driving this entire thing. The other is occupancy. And a relevant example for India is most of the audience is from India. So office asset class, if you recall, Sandeep, in the last 10 years has become completely institutionalized because of the tenants first, and then now because of the investors, because the logical conclusion of stabilized assets is a REIT offering at the end of the day. So that is the second push that you have. And the third is even if this were not true, I think it is interesting to note that there is no other way to do this. So you cannot make inefficient buildings, you cannot make stuff that is not going to be climate friendly, or it's not going to be sustainable generally from all parameters. So I think that's something that we look forward to. I think Indian warehousing market is, I'm just answering on the Indian warehousing bit. Indian warehousing is estimated to be about 340 million square feet. Only about 90 odd million, if I recall right, is grade A. But most interesting thing is that all the new construction, most of the new construction is now getting classified as grade A. So if you're a developer, long story short, or an asset owner, you have a big incentive to either retrofit or reclassify your old warehouse. I don't know the optimum way to do that, because sometimes in warehousing, it's easier to demolish a very old structure and reconstruct a better one. But that's one way. Or the other, which is very interesting for us, is you can make a new building which is meeting all the edge requirements. And so then most of the times we also hear this question is, what exactly is net zero? What do you mean by edge 20%, 40%? And these are nomenclatures or even other certifications which are there. So there needs to be harmonization across all these rating agencies and rating certifications. But generally, when you look at a building, it's the whole life situation that we're looking for the building. So we're looking at the embodied carbon, we're looking at basically the carbon that was generated while producing the raw materials, the construction technology, where I think Jeet mentioned you could cut down on emissions, and then on the operating basis, and then the end of life recovery of materials. So as of now, embodied carbon becomes very difficult to estimate, but that's a technology solution, and it's also what is normally classified as a scope 3 or scope 1 classification, depending on how you see it.
Scope 3.
Scope 3 and scope 1 for the cement producer. So, for clarity purposes, these are scopes defined by, science-based targets. Scope 1 is something that you are directly responsible for. Scope 2 is energy emissions, and scope 3 is supply chain, and so on and so forth. So this is the entire, ecosystem that we're seeing flourishing here. And I see no difference when I see this across, let's say, Mandar would have also seen that across his portfolio in Asia Pacific. This is how it is getting revamped in the ecosystem. I think your point on the pricing and how does this thing work, India has seen nascent green loans, I would say, not as much as green bonds in property, but more green loans. Last year, there was a There was a transaction with, I think, Indospace and HSBC. That was one transaction that that kind of addressed stabilized operating warehouses. There is a myth that that green financing actually is more expensive for the borrower, and on the converse side, there is a greenium, which is there is basically it is it is less pricey for the buyer. So this is a demand and supply function, but I think the more interesting thing on green bonds, in particular green loans, is the end of use proceeds and how do you monitor this. So technology is starting to play a big role, as I think one of the panelists was mentioning, in terms of monitoring and verifying these things and then reporting them. Because this on an ongoing basis is, I think, Gartham, you were mentioning about the IoT input and maybe software as a service, as one of these things. So that's how we are seeing this. So more focus is on operating and capturing data, and the challenge is on the embodied carbon that is, most of us are finding it difficult to tabulate and incorporate. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Sandeep.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Sandeep, I would like to add a couple of things here.
Yes, please.
I would like to add a couple of things here. I think what Mridul said, there are two parts in that. In one is embodied carbon, yes, which is really a challenge. And operational carbon, in any case, I said that in terms of warehousing, you can actually be self-reliant on easily on rooftop solar. Okay, so it is the challenge is embodied carbon, and globally it is almost 50-50 embodied carbon and in terms of life cycle assessment, 50% embodied and 50% operational. So embodied, we cannot really let it go if we really need to have real impact on the climate change. Now, in this, actually, a lot of work is happening. I think that eco-level certified products or EPDS certified products are coming in the market. Okay. And gradually, as I can see since the last couple of years, the shift is that more and more products are coming under this, which actually takes care of the complete supply chain in terms of your embodied carbon. And it is coming at a competitive price without any additional cost. So things are opening up. In fact, in terms of embodied carbon, also tomorrow the opportunity will be there. First is that, in terms of consultants, okay, or architects, to kind of design the warehouses for minimum possible material consumption, which actually reduces the embodied carbon for sure. Number two is basically sourcing all the materials which are EPDS or eco-level certified products, where your carbon footprints are much less. So that is what we are working on now. And hopefully in couple of years, we'll be much ahead of in terms of even addressing the embodied carbons.
Thank you, Gartham. Mridul, I would like to actually thank you also for pointing out the HSBC transaction and because that's I like it specifically because EDGE was a defining criteria for the green loan that was given by HSBC to Indospace. So IFC's EDGE was the criteria required, and the EDGE certification formed the proof of compliance. So, this whole process of setting the criteria and then demonstrating compliance is made simpler by EDGE because, and EDGE has been designed by IFC for the specific purpose of enabling green finance and making it, more straightforward for the building sector. So thanks for that. And my last question to, I think, all of you is about the challenges that you see, and we can go one by one, whichever one you prefer, you can go first. But in terms of challenges on the path to zero carbon, what are the challenges you see? How can those challenges be addressed? And are there any opportunities that you want to talk about? Keep it very brief because we have very limited time. We have to open up for audience questions as well. So this is my final question to all of you.
So maybe Sandeep, I'll just
start
with a little preamble and then love to hear others. But so the concept of zero carbon is a building which is in homeostasis with its surroundings, just as a very high level. And the path to zero carbon is depending on what degree of increase you want to participate. So as probably people may know, during Paris climate conference, there were two parts: at least 2 degrees, or preferably 1.5 degrees is the increase in temperature. Now, 1.5 degrees in this context cannot happen if you do not include operating parameters, because there's as much as you can do in building new stuff. So all the half the real estate that is getting created hopefully will become climate efficient, that you mentioned at the beginning of the call. Secondly is this path to net zero has to happen before 2050. So if you're doing it beyond 2050, then you're actually not even the average, because most of the funds and institutional asset owners are following a net zero path that probably achieves that objective in 2030, 2040, most of it. So the last point on this is, what are the challenges in terms of net zero pathway? I think the market is also discovering this. There are 2 points from here to the year when you want to achieve net zero, but there are multiple pathways on which you can achieve that objective. So, which means it also depends on what is the quality of your portfolio. So if there are legacy assets, they could be stranded, so you need to do retrofitting. If it is new construction, you need to plan it differently. But that being said, I think at the end of the day, once you achieve net zero, there is a little bit which is left to achieve net zero, which can only happen through carbon offsets. So how do you get that carbon offsets, which is aligned to the global world? I think that will become the residual challenge. But I think I'll pause here, but these are some of the points that you may find useful.
That's very interesting, Vidal. Who else wants to go next?
Yeah, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Definitely the path is challenging for developers like us. Mandar will also agree with me. The rental cost for us, it's a rental cost. Okay. So the increase in the cost, okay, doesn't proportionate to the rental cost. Okay. But I see it on the other side of that, like, if you do those buildings, okay, which are the need of an hour, okay, the green buildings are definitely need of an hour in the future. Okay. If you increase that cost now, okay, and maybe that period can increase by another 2-3 years, okay, but definitely in the future your buildings are going to be towards the green building and towards your zero carbon path. Okay, so it's a challenging task, but not achievable. Okay, it can be definitely achievable, and also the cost incurred in it has to be looked at the future perspective of that building. Okay,
right.
I'll pause here. Definitely, I think we're running a lot of.
Yes, recently I was talking to a consultant friend of mine in one of the property consulting companies, and they were talking about some of their clients looking at what Mridul earlier touched upon, retrofitting, and the term he was using was future proofing. So, very important point you touched upon, Jeet, that you have to, from a business perspective, from a risk mitigation perspective, also you have to look at it from a future perspective. Yeah, that's thanks correct. For that.
Yeah, I'll add to what Jeet said, that if you talk from a implementation perspective, there are no major challenges for constructing a green building, except that it does not complement the commercials of that deal. that is a different part.
Not yet.
But not yet. See, there are more and more customers who are aware of that sustainable buildings do provide them specific benefits in terms of lower operating costs. Okay, but that again, from a deal perspective, and I'm sure Madhul will agree with this, that the way to go about it is, if it's a shorter lease, if it's a short-term lease, then the tenant or the customer would not be really interested in spending that extra buck. Okay, but if it's a longer lease, if the tenant is looking at a longer period, then it really proves to be a very win-win solution for both the parties. And that is how I would take it. And from a cost perspective, it is a potential barrier to become more sustainable, but with future proof future planning, I think we should be able to very much go green with all these initiatives.
Can I?
Please.
What we see recent trend is in the same challenges in similar lines from a consultant side. So we have been wanting to design a building with highest efficiency within the same fixed cost, and with the same the cost doesn't change, but we have to increase the efficiency in every bit. So because the tenant does not want to give you more price, so
Right.
developers like actually the force us to. So we find a very creative ways and all kind of different ways to create more efficient building and with a lesser cost, but there are a lot of green sustainable points that's added into the building. So that's the kind of a challenge that we see, and we are able to meet about 75-80% of the time. Like we're able to meet the challenges within the cost. So on the times to come, like we're always evolving in our design efficiency. So this is one thing that I wanted to add to this panel. So
that's very nice to hear, Mark. Gartham, any comments from your side on challenges?
One more thing, as I think that cost is prominently coming, the differential cost of the delta for going green, and then client not being ready. But I think some amount of regulatory effect must come in. And if it is not a level playing field for everybody, then the things will not possibly change. The challenge is basically how to create a level playing field for the players. Now, today we are talking about cost. Tomorrow, possibly, if it is a level playing field and it is given, the equation will change. So the baseline for the profitability has to change. Because if you are getting a warehouse of 10 rupees a square feet rent, vis-a-vis any grade A warehouse, nothing less than 20 rupees anybody can afford, and parallel you can get 10 rupees, 12 rupees, then it becomes a challenge. This is one. And second is, of course, too many small warehouses are available from the small players. Now, because the land is a big issue in India, so if you are talking about a large warehouse where you can really get an economies of scale, I think land is one of the challenge, and it takes huge time period for implementation of the project. So I think we have more or less discussed all the challenges.
Sure.
So
I think we have about 10 minutes left, and we would like to open it up for any questions from the audience. Indrajit, have we received it? Can you?
We have a very interesting question from Paresh Kulkarni. What are the cost implications of green initiatives, and how is this financed? And what is the methodology for calculating ROI for green initiatives?
So the question is on cost implication of green initiatives. We were talking about this just now. Essentially, I think what I'm hearing from the panel is it doesn't get financed independently. I mean, there is a potential, but I'll park that on the side, and maybe Mridul can talk about it. But essentially, the cost of these initiatives have to come in form of increased rentals from the tenants. But what I'm also hearing is that rentals are market-based, right? So they are not necessarily a factor of cost always. They're a factor of demand and supply, and more tenants, especially now that the market's consolidating and there are larger tenants, they are all demanding green because they have their mandates set from their boards to occupy only green buildings. So in that sense, if the benefit is not coming in form of a higher rental, but it is definitely coming in form of higher occupancy and higher likelihood of getting the tenant. Otherwise, you get out of the race for getting that tenant. Anybody else wants to add to this?
Yes, Sandeep, I would like to add. I think the question is also towards like what would be the incremental towards the normal construction as against a green initiative. I would put it in the range of somewhere around 12 to 15% cost incremental as against if you are not going with a conventional construction part. But yeah, on the ROI part, I will need help from Mridul Mridul, if you can throw some light on the green financing as well as the way the ROI would be calculated.
So before we go there, one of the things that our Edge tool does is it gives you a financial calculator. The numbers are calculated live. And in our experience, I think, Mandar, you might be talking about a lot of the infrastructure initiatives, whatever on the landscaping, recharging of water and all that. But if you look at only at the buildings, in our estimate, and I'm not just talking about warehouses, I'm talking about, across the building sector, our experience has been that the incremental cost is usually somewhere between 1 and 3%. Maybe for warehouses, it's a little bit higher because the base cost, it's a lower base cost, right? So an increase can be, so there it might go in north of 5-6%, but usually the break even is, if I again talk about the overall averages, the break even is like on an average 2 years. Again, for warehousing, it may be going a little bit higher, but those are the numbers from our experience, and they're not very, very high. With that, I think, Britul, if you have any pointers, when I put on the question, I can't see the panelists, so sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'll just be brief with this. I was about to say the same thing actually, which is the cost as a percentage is there, and the break even is 2 to 3 years, as what we've witnessed. I'll leave the person who asked the question with an interesting thought, which is there are a lot of companies who are financing this capex. So one thing is happening is that the asset owner is owning the capex and then taking the rental income on this, or additional rental income, or at the same rental income. But suppose somebody came to you and said, I'll finance the green capex, and this will be net zero at zero cost. So there are a lot of startups who are trying to do this. And startups can do this because they are not financed based on EBITDA positivity. They are based on network effects and other issues. So at scale, landlords can also benefit. Your P&L is somebody else's balance sheet and vice versa. So that's the point I'll make.
Very interesting.
Sandeep, can I take one more question?
Sure, please.
What was I don't know. This is this is to be accountable. What was the greenhouse gas emissions for warehouses constructed earlier, and how much reduction has been achieved with PAB or precast? And what is the expected reduction in future adopting new technology?
It seems to be a very large question to answer on in one line. Actually, the things are evolving in a larger way to actually reduce the green gas. So that's the one word I could say. I think other panelists can add on to it. But you cannot put a number as we see in India, like the currency is in an evolving scenario. So I don't think anybody would have calculated or computed the number of reduction and when it will be the reduction and how quickly we can reduce the green gas. I don't think in warehouse area there's such structured figure is available. So anybody else want to add to it?
I think I can add a couple of points here. One is that in terms of greenhouse gas, if you are talking about other than carbon for warehouse operation, fortunately, we don't have any other greenhouse emissions to be considered. It is essentially the energy and how you are sourcing this energy. Okay. So if you are sourcing the energy from rooftop solar, so I don't see any kind of greenhouse gas emissions from a warehouse operations coming into the picture. So therefore, I think we need to concentrate only on kind of all renewable source of energy and kind of do away with the greenhouse gas emissions from the warehousing space.
That's correct, Gautamji. And I will just add to it. So, of course, there are no specific numbers available in the current scenario, but the current operations, the way we are operating, also that we have a very interesting thing which we carry out typically in all our acquisitions. We conduct a climate resilience study right from the day when we acquire a land, and so that is where we are developing this data with us, that what is the GHG at the time when we acquire the land, and what is the anticipated GHG at the end of the development, what we would do, of course, and the monitoring how we go along during the operations. And this, as Gautamji said, in case of warehousing, it would be more towards the energy part of it. there won't be any other GHG emissions. But yes, energy reduction has come down a little bit as of now, maybe 5 to 6% over a period of years, which is anticipated and targeted to bring it down by around 15 to 20%.
Thanks, Mandar. My colleague Mohini just reminded me that there is a very interesting aspect of our edge tool. So may I request Mohini, who's from IFC again, to address that point.
So just wanted to add on the GHG emission aspect. While we don't have data comparing how the conventional buildings were, emitting carbon, the emissions were higher compared to the precast. But we can definitely do it with the edge tool. I mean, in terms, we can build a design case which uses precast and compare it with a base case. And if you have any queries around that, we can guide you to use how to use the edge tool. But our tool can definitely help you understand that for a particular case. Overall, how market is, saving, we can make an estimate from that. But at a building level, we can definitely do it through edge tool. That's all to add. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thanks so much, Mohini. So yeah, I should have thought of that, but very, very interesting point you brought up. The edge tool actually for any building that you're trying to evaluate for resource efficiency, it first creates a base case, and then once you choose your features of green features, then it creates an improved case. And it also quantifies the exact carbon and savings that you will do with the improved case. So I think we have run out of time. Thanks.
Sandeep,
Sorry.
we can take one more question.
Okay.
So see, it's a very interesting question. Does greenhouse provide this green warehouses provide any product life increased data to justify cost increase in warehousing?
So to understand it better, the life of the products that are stored in the warehouse, I think the question is about that, right?
Yeah, I think, does it prolong the life of the products stored in the warehouse if the warehouse is green? Maybe Gartham would like to answer that.
I could not really relate this question because what product you are storing. Now, if the product is kind of, your packaging is good, and then basically not much of product interaction with the environment is there is no degradation. Okay, so essentially this has to be tackled by the packaging, appropriate packaging. In any case, when it reaches to the consumer point, also you need that packaging to give the freshness or the richness of the whatever the product we are talking about. If I'm talking about perishable product, and if I'm talking about other products, industrial products, in any case, I don't see any environmental degradation because of your ambient conditions. And in any case, warehouse, we don't come across your NOx, SOx, or for that matter, any other methane or any other hydrocarbon gases, which can really impact. So in any case, when you are talking about warehousing, you are talking about completely pelletized or fully packed products. So if I'm talking about perishable, I think forget about this. It has the freshness or richness till the consumer point. So that packaging itself will take care of it.
Thank you. I think that was the last question. So I thank you all, the panelists and the audience for this very enriching and insightful discussion. Thank you all the panelists once again. It became very clear during the discussion that if you're a warehouse developer, you have to build green. Otherwise, you risk losing investors, you can lose your tenants, and as was mentioned, there can be potentially regulatory issues as well, as the government itself tries to put forward policies and regulations around climate change. Now, the writing on the wall is clear that all of us must act now in our respective businesses to address and prevent climate change. Otherwise, it's a very bleak future that we are looking at. But there is a lot to hope for good. Many businesses here have already been taking steps. And as you heard all the panelists, most of the larger businesses are already moving towards the path to zero carbon. And I think the warehousing sector can be the first in the real estate industry to maybe achieve zero carbon status for all new buildings that are coming up. historically what's constructed is constructed, and hopefully there will be retrofits. But I think if I have to compare amongst sectors within real estate, probably warehousing is best poised to be a fully zero carbon sector, for all new buildings. That is the hope that I have, and hence the sector can actually lead the industry towards a path of zero carbon. It is a great opportunity that we all have, and it is also a huge responsibility that we have on our shoulders. Thank you so much once again. Over to you, Jayashree.
So Sandeep, before I pass it on to Jayashree, may I just add one thing based on the facts we have receiving?
Please,
so thank you everyone for sharing these questions, but I have seen there are questions around what kind of green measures we can incorporate in the building, and what kind of buildings we can make green, whether educational buildings can be made green, or what are these measures that we can incorporate. So we would love to interact with you. We would love to work with you to see how we can make your buildings green. And just to share that with Edge, you can actually certify and work on the Edge tool, which is free to use, to see what are these measures you can integrate. So definitely we are there. Please reach out to us if you need any assistance in terms of understanding these measures. Thank you. Over to you, Jayashree. Sorry for pausing.
Thank you, Moin.
Thank you so much. That was a very, very interesting discussion. We will, of course, we'll have it live on our Construction Week website, on our YouTube channel, and also a report of this will go in the magazine in next month. Meanwhile, take care, and thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a quick announcement to make before we wind up. We are having this Construction Week Awards on 26th of November with the Green Project as one of the most prominent categories. So I would request if each one of you can send in your nominations. The nominations are on currently. You can log on to our website and participate. So please do participate.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a big thank you once again to each one of you, and we look forward to see you in the next session very soon. Happy Diwali, and wish you all a very happy weekend. Thank you all.
Happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.